This is Truthful Manipulation, where truth is the truth and reality is made real and clear to understand. I'm Dave Kelsey, and I'm here today with my co-host, H. Daniel Mujahid. On this week's episode of Truthful Manipulation, we're going to cover, once again, current events. Today is a very important day in American history because we have several different votes going on across the country to see what direction we're going to head in the future. And the question that we're going to ask, and I'm going to ask of Daniel, is, do you feel that the American public has learned anything over the last 10 months that would make them make a better decision than what's been made last year?
Well, I definitely believe that we've had quite a ride. These 10 months have been very much disappointing to anyone that said that they believed that the presider was the right person for the job. The failures, the record, his positions on tariffs, his position on global warfare, his positions on domestic
Hold on just a second, Daniel. Let's think about this. This dude had failed business after failed business after failed business. If he hadn't been born with that silver spoon that was in his mouth, he'd be a pauper today. But the American people got fooled. They got fooled and they got manipulated, and now they got cheated, didn't they? You have to remember, for years, I identified as a Republican. But I can truly tell you that I don't want anything to do with the Republican Party as it stands today. Because do you know what the Republican Party stands for today, Daniel?
What's that?
Cruelty. You know what else it stands for? Lying. You know what else it stands for?
Manipulation.
Cheating. And then we go into the manipulation. Think about this. The American people chose to put a felon in the White House. They chose to put somebody in power that's done nothing but try to destroy the country that we all are patriotic towards. The Republican Party has taken policies, and they took the mask off, though, because up until this last year, they had always played along because the policies, and even I was fooled for a lot of years, their policies are always bad for normal people. And now that they're all in power, and since all of them are billionaires for the most part, they really couldn't give two shits about whether or not you have the ability to put food on your table, whether you have the ability to support your family, because this party no longer stands for anything good. They stand for corruption and cruelty.
Well, that is unquestionably what we have experienced. And I think that, when we look at Virginia, we look at New Jersey, we look at New York even, and we look at California, the question is going to be, did the American people learn from what we've experienced, or are we still under the notion of what we call manipulation, that we have to support this presider and his wants, because after all, he did win the election. And then therefore, we have to just ignore those things, all of those things that have gone wrong, which is probably 90% of his action. So now this today becomes a test. And in terms of how we get through and see what it is to be American now, Dave put together a what I call a aware response. And aware is an acronym, and I wanted to pose that to the American people. And Dave, walk us through this acronym, aware.
Well, first off, A stands for ask for specifics. And this is the question that you need to ask yourself. Can you walk me through the exact problem we're solving and the alternatives you considered? And then the W stands for watch incentives. What changes for you, me, the team, if we do this versus don't? What benefits and how? And then access evidence. This is probably one of the most critical things that you can do today is access evidence. And with the invention of AI, there's absolutely no reason that nobody doesn't find the data because it's all there. All you have to do is go on and ask for it, and your computer will give you. But access evidence, what data or examples support this? Can I review the source or talk to somebody who's implemented it? If they try to convince you that you don't need that information, you're going to next request time. R stands for request. This matters. I'll give you an answer, but specific time after I verify the details. And here's probably the most important one of all of them. It's E. And what that stands for is exit if necessary professionally. And this is your way out, given the information gaps and timeline. I'm not comfortable proceeding. I'm open to revisit this with clearer parameters. This will buy space to think and surfaces hidden assumptions and often detours manipulation playbooks without drama. This is an article that I actually wrote and published on LinkedIn today. So if you'd like to go in and have a copy of this for yourself, just go into my LinkedIn account and you'll be able to download this.
In that outline, Dave also gives us the typical patterns of interaction that we ignore as being manipulation, and he kind of profiles three of the main ones, which is like the emotional hijacking that we occur, the idea of, hey, after everything I've done for you,
this is your last hold on. Doesn't that sound familiar today? We've got somebody that sits in the White House that constantly is telling us, look what I've done for you, as they're taking jobs away from people in the federal government, as they're pulling food from people that need it to support their families, particularly now. You know what they're saying, Daniel? They're saying, go to community centers and that. And you know what? The American people are good. And the American people will help these folks in their time of need. But you need to remember this. None of that help is coming from the people that are in power right now. Remember, this is the party of cruelty. This is the party of criminals. This is the party of excess for them and nothing for you. And if you don't figure that out, and if the American people don't do what they should do today, we're going to be in serious, serious trouble. But today, the American people have the ability to send a message to the U.S. government and tell them we're not going to take your bullshit anymore. It's time for you to knock off what you're doing. It's also time, Daniel, for our supremely corrupt Supreme Court to pull her finger out of their ass and put some controls on this guy like they should have done a long time ago. But their complicity and their manipulation of the system is what's got us to where we are. When you've got people that sit on that court that virtually have been bribed by billionaires to get their excesses across the line, we've got a problem in this country. And that's called a government that's corrupt in every aspect that you can look at today. You can't look at one form of our government and not see some type of corruption.
Well, I didn't know that we were going to, bring up people like my brother, Clarence Thomas, but your point is well taken and it is on point. You also describe another form of this manipulation as what you called informational fog, where you actually get someone being quoted who's not an expert on the area that they're talking about. You get a head of an FBI who hasn't had the background to be heading the FBI. You get a insurance attorney to now bring a charge against an AG without any background or any proof or any real information that speaks to the issues.
That's because
so when we see all this,
Daniel, that's because her master told her to do it. You did understand what I just said. Her master told her to do it. But what I want to know today is who's pulling the master's strings, because I can truly tell you the master doesn't know where the hell he is 2/3 of the time today. If we had any other president that was in this much mental decline at this time, the other party would have gone totally ballistic. The press would have gone ballistic, but this particular person has kowtowered all of them. You've got a press that's scared to speak out. You've got opposition that won't do what they need to do. And then you got the boys in the party that are all down on their knees going, give me more.
And Dave, you went on to talk about telltale signs, and these are things that we've noticed about our federal administration today that remind us of incompetency, ignorance, and also greed. Things like this idea of urgency without clarity, where we got to have a decision right now, but we don't even have the details to make a decision. And then you have the idea of all upside and no downside, So the risk is not even taken into consideration because it's what the presider wants. Come on, America, we're better than this, as we said to ourselves in signing up to be supporters of the Constitution. We have a presider who's been actions have been totally against the Constitution, yet we continue to find ways psychologically to tolerate. And the list goes on that you listed there, Dave, but I wanted to focus on this one that you said about the shifting standards, where you say the criteria changes once you meet them. So even if you do what is requested of you as an American then the standard changes. And so what you've done doesn't even count.
Well, let's look at it as everybody in the U.S. understands what football is. And let's say that you set up for a 45-yard field goal, which is quite a distance, although you got these kids kicking close to 60-yard field goals today. But let's call it a 45-yard field goal. But just as that player's foot hits the ball, the goalpost moves 20 feet one way or the other. That's what the U.S. government is today. As soon as they're trying to shift the goalposts constantly, they're always trying to shift them in their favor. And this lying Remember what I said at the beginning of the show, where truth is truth and reality will be made real for everyone to understand. This is what we're doing for you. We're going to make you understand that the reality that you're living in is caused by the people that most of you, or a good majority of you, decided to put in power. But how's that working out for you today? How do you feel about those decisions? Do you feel comfortable? And how about this? I know this. I live in one of the northern states, and I'm getting very sick, as I'm sure the Californians and the New Yorkers are, of our tax dollars going to support these Republican-run states that they set up there and talk a good line, but when their states take in way more money than they contribute to the federal government, how about we pass a national law that says this? You get not 1 cent more than you put in. Not 1 cent more. And guess what happens to Mr. Mike Johnson's state? What happens to it, Daniel?
It's a suspect.
They're bankrupt. They're bankrupt in less than a month. And that's the leadership of these red Republicans. They don't give a shit so long as they can get their piece. And right now, America, they want a piece of you.
I think the aware response in its entirety, because it gives a lot of insight into how one can be manipulated. Well, I think we should post this, Dave, on all of our outlets. You know, it's a very, very wonderful created work, and it's designed to get Americans not just the help that we may need, but the vision to be who we are, given the fact that we have had challenges to be what America is to be. And we still wrestle with that. And I think that it's up to us to make a difference for ourselves.
It's definitely up to us to decide what we want to be in the future. Do we want to be what we used to be, or do we want to be what we are right now? And that's this week's episode of Truthful Manipulation. Please get a hold of us with comments about today's show at truthfulmanipulation@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram weekly for updates. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe at truthfulmanipulation.com. Pick up a copy of our book, Truthful Manipulation. It'll help you recognize these manipulations in your life. Thank you for listening this week.